I wanted to make some videos for YouTube, but when I came into my shop to start filming, I realized I didn't have a camera stand. So I thought it would be best for my first project if I built one. The camera I have is a cell phone. It's not this one, obviously. But to support it, I'm thinking I'll put a shelf and then an edge behind it, and then I'll do an upright to support the camera. I'm not really doing exact measurements on this, but approximate length to mostly reach the length of the phone. I'm mostly using this 3/4 inch pine square because I got it as cutoffs from a project I was working on. To make the edge part of the shelf to keep the camera from falling off, I'm using some even thinner material. I want to have this attached to another arm with a pivot like this. So I'm gonna drill a hole in here and thread it to make a flexible joint. The attachment I'm going to make, I'm going to tap a 5/16 inch bolt into here, and that's instead of using a nut to hold it on, I'll just be able to thread it into the wood. I'm just going to attach the edge piece to the bottom stand piece using some glue. I'll set that aside and let it dry for a bit. This is a neat trick I learned from Matthias Wendell. This is how to make a bolt that you can have a knob on pretty easily. Mine's a bit of a bastardized version, but it works. I'm going to drill a hole just a bit bigger than the bolt's head with the Forstner bit. And start this off. Make it just deep enough to clear the head. Then drill a clearance hole all the way through with 5/16, which is the size of the bolt. I'm going to take the bolt and put a little bit of glue on it. Doesn't really need much. Help if I had the right size hole. I'm going to dump some glue around the edges of it. And I got some wood fine splinter pieces. I'm going to jam those in there. Put a little bit of glue on top of that. And set that aside and let it dry. Once it's dry, the bolt's really anchored in there. It's not going to turn at all. So I'm going to break off these pieces off the back and sand it down to make it smooth. That's an easy way to make a knob out of just parts that are in about. For the uprights, I'm just going to use a piece of 2x2 with a couple of holes tapped into it here and here, and I've got it just screwed into a pine board, 4x4 pine board. For the swing arm, I'm going to use another piece of 3/4 inch stock, and I'm going to drill a 5/16 hole about here and a 3/8 hole about here, because those are the two sizes of the bolts that I use to make the locking hardware. So to assemble the locking joints, it'll just be the knob part. We'll go through one of the through holes. Let's get a washer in there. And then threading into the other piece of wood. When that's tightened down, it'll make a really rigid connection that can be adjusted as much as you want. The washer in there, it helps it so it's sticking on this side rather than loosening the back as much as possible when you're tightening it. Finally, to make the crossbar piece, I've got a threaded hole in this end, and I drilled a small hole in this end, which is going to hold the wire that's going to hold the phone in place, or the camera. And I'm going to glue the crossbar onto here to support the phone. And altogether, the stand has a pretty decent range from the top hole. It's there at about 2 feet high. And in the top setting, it can be adjusted down fairly low to get a close-up view on something. It could be adjusted even lower in the lower setting.